What's the scariest story you've ever heard? Real or fake? All right, figured I'd share one of my own. This story was told to me by my great-aunt, one of my grandmother's 9 sisters. In Cuba, where we're all from, the summers tend to get hot. Coupled with the lack of air conditioning, you'd have to be wealthy to own a unit, people tend to sleep with doors and windows open. One night, my Aunt T was putting her grandchildren to sleep. She laid in bed with them, and they were alone in the home. One of her sisters, Berta, was supposed to be keeping them company tonight, but some last-minute event made her change where she slept that night. My Aunt T says that sometime around 9 p.m., she noticed a figure who, by her description, must have been 7 feet tall. It was human-shaped, but seemed to float inside their home. If it had legs, they weren't visible because a long robe of some sort covered them and dragged along her floor. At this point, rather than scream in fear, my Aunt T decides to lay perfectly still so as to not wake the children. She sees the figure cross the hallway and head into her room, looming ominously over them. The face she described was that of a pale woman, with big red lips and her hair in dreads like that of a Rastafarian man. There were just shadows, cavities as she called it, where her eyes would have been. It left her room through the same way it entered, but didn't leave. My aunt's house is large, and she swears she saw the figure go in and out of each room, take about the same amount of time, then leave. Eventually, she ran out of places in the home to visit, and simply glided out the front door. My aunt cries to this very day because the next morning her sister Berta was found dead. Everyone thought it must have been some sort of heart attack or stroke in her sleep because no one heard anything, and they found her where she had laid the night before, only lifeless. My aunt swears the thing must have been death itself, searching for her second story. A man is driving a regular route along the highway when he notices a turnoff that will take him up through the mountains. He figures he drives this way all the time, but has never taken the mountain path, even though it will only take him a few hours longer to reach his destination. As a spur-of-the-moment decision, he takes the turn and begins his journey up the winding road. He'd started his drive later in the day than usual, so the sky is getting dark as he approaches the top, but the view is gorgeous. While he continues, he gets a small chill up the base of his neck, but dismisses it as the cool mountain air. Not long after, he has to slow his car as he approaches what appears to be a nasty car accident. 2 cars completely totaled, looking like they hit each other head-on just after rounding a corner. The man can see a few bodies on the ground, all bloodied and not moving. Immediately, he knows he has to pull over and help, but he can't stop some sixth sense telling him something about the scene is wrong, like it isn't natural. He decides he's going to drive his car forward and park it just beyond the crash site before getting out to help. He slowly creeps by the wreck and manages a better look at one of the bodies. It's definitely human, but something seems amiss, but he still can't place it. He rolls the car forward maybe 6 meters from the crash site. As he's about to come to a stop and open his door to investigate, he looks out his front windshield for a moment. It's gotten terribly dark now, nearly pitch black, when something in his rearview mirror catches the eye. Several somethings, in fact. As he gazes into the mirror in horror, he can see the bodies of the crash site illuminated by his rear lights. All of them are sitting up, staring directly at his car, eyes like glowing orbs in the mirror. He panics as suddenly more people come out from the ditches and forest surrounding the road, but only when the crash victim bodies begin to stand, seemingly fine, no limps or dragging themselves, does he have the presence of mind to throw the car back into drive. By the time the first people are taking careful steps toward the vehicle, he's already speeding as fast as he can around the bend and getting the hell of the mountain. Nothing ever came for him, nor did it seem he was ever followed. Sometimes he wonders if his mind played a trick. Third story. A young girl is playing in her bedroom when she hears her mother call to her from the kitchen, so she runs downstairs to meet her mother. As she's running through the hallway, the door to the cupboard under the stairs opens, and a hand reaches out and pulls her in. It's her mother. She whispers to the child, "Don't go into the kitchen, I heard it too." Fourth story. It's late. There are 3 people on a subway train sitting in a row, 2 men and a woman in the middle. A teenage gal walks on the subway and sits across from the 3 strangers. The woman in the middle has an expressionless look on her face while the 2 men are staring directly into the teenager's eyes. Shortly after, a businessman enters the subway and sits next to the teenager. After a few minutes, he pulls out his notepad and writes, "Get off the next stop. Trust me." When the next stop comes, the teenager and the businessman get up to exit the cab when the 2 men verbally try to stop them. When they get off, the man explains to the teenager that the woman in the middle of the 2 men was dead and they were after her next. "Heard this when I was in 7th grade. Always freaked me out.